So hi there and welcome again to this series of lectures about vectors. So in the first session of vectors we discussed about the geometrical representation of vectors, where we saw that a vector can be represented on a two-dimensional plane by an arrow or a line segment, wherein the magnitude of the vector is represented by the length of the arrow and the direction is represented by the direction in which the arrow points. And following that, we understood how to compare different vectors, for example, equal vectors, opposite vectors, parallel vectors, anti-parallel vectors, etc. And we developed a geometrical method to add vectors, subtract vectors, etc. The parallelogram law of vector addition, subtraction, right? However, as we discussed various different aspects, we understood an inherent limitation in the concept of geometrical representation, wherein because we are limited to a two-dimensional plane, we can only deal with algebra of vectors which are coplanar or which lie in the same two-dimensional plane. Now today we come to the next part of vector algebra, wherein we understand a different sort of representation of vectors as opposed to the geometrical representation, which is called the component algebra of vectors or resolution of vectors. So we will start by discussing the basics of what is called resolution of vectors and component algebra. So this is an alternative approach to vector algebra, wherein it is essentially based on a sort of coordinate geometry approach to understanding vectors and to working out various algebraic operations like addition, subtraction, etc. on vectors. So first of all, under this section, let us understand unit vectors in a Cartesian coordinate system. Yeah. So as we know, a unit vector itself is defined as a vector of magnitude 1. Or magnitude equal to unity. And hence, if we have a given vector E, we can represent a unit vector along the direction of E by simply defining E cap as the unit vector of the vector A as a vector of magnitude magnitude 1, but direction equal to the magnitude of direction of vector E. So it would be defined as the vector A itself divided by the magnitude of vector A. So that is how we define a unit vector in terms of another given vector. So given any particular vector or any arbitrary vector, we can define its unit vector. So given the vector A, let's say A is a displacement of 50 meters in a certain direction, maybe 30 degrees north of east. So how to define A's unit vector, which in short we call A cap, right, given by this symbol, we would just define it as a vector A divided by its own magnitude. So that in terms of this particular vector, assuming that A was a displacement of 50 meters in the direction 30 degrees north of east, A cap would work out to be this, which is nothing but a displacement of unity or 1 meter in the direction 30 degrees north of east. Okay. So that's how we define unit vectors in general. Now what we are going to concentrate on next over here is particular type of unit vectors, which are the standard unit vectors in a Cartesian coordinate system or a rectangular coordinate system. So as you know, a rectangular coordinate system is basically one where the axes are mutually perpendicular. So taking the standard nomenclature of such a rectangular coordinate system, the x-axis, let's say, representing the horizontal direction, the y-axis representing the vertical direction as I've shown, and the z-axis would represent the mutually perpendicular direction, which is basically coming out of the plane over here. So the z-axis represents actually more the direction shown by my pen over here, whereas x and y axis lie in the plane of the board. So all three axes are mutually perpendicular. Now the standard nomenclature and convention that we use is I cap is the symbol which is defined for a unit vector that is lying along the x-axis. So I cap is defined as the unit vector along the x-axis. So similarly, the unit vector that is along y-axis would be represented by the symbol j cap. So that would be y-axis, and similarly k cap would be the unit vector that is along the z-axis. Right. So these are the three standard Cartesian unit vectors which are represented along the x, y, and z axis. So for example, if I am representing this geometrically, then I cap would be a vector of magnitude 1 that is lying along this. J cap would be a vector of magnitude 1, which is again like this, and k cap would be a vector coming out of the plane. Okay, so of magnitude 1 again. So these three would be mutually perpendicular. Right? Okay. So that is the concept of unit vectors, and we will understand in a bit of time what their importance is when it comes to resolution and component algebra of vectors. So the next aspect we'll understand about component algebra is components of a vector. What do we mean by the term component of a vector? Let's try and understand that. Okay. So let us say we have a particular vector E, okay, and we have, let us say, a unit vector given by n cap. Okay, so A is any arbitrary vector, and n cap is any particular unit vector that is defined in the direction that is shown. So its magnitude is 1, whereas A has a magnitude of mod A, whatever. Okay. So it turns out that there is a certain relationship which will define that the vector A has a certain component along the vector n cap or along the unit vector n cap, and that component, so we can define the component of E along n cap by this following operation. Okay. Now one can think of the component, the term component, as a projection. So let's understand what the meaning of the term projection is. Projection is basically, I mean, in layman's language, projection is nothing but a shadow. Okay. So let's say that n cap is a unit vector, as I've shown, along this particular direction. So n cap over here is along this line. This is the line of action of n cap. Okay. And let us say that the vector E, when I draw it from the common origin with n cap, is lying like this, where the angle between E and n cap is theta. Okay. Again, we would be able to figure out the angle given the two vectors, right? So what the term projection here would basically mean that if you think of this like a physical object, like the rod, okay, and we were to throw light on the rod in a certain way, then it would throw a shadow along this axis. If we had a plane along this axis, it would throw a shadow. Now that shadow would have a certain length which is definitely less than the length of the rod A. So trigonometrically speaking, you could see that that shadow would be nothing but the base of a triangle if I drop a perpendicular from A's head onto the direction of n cap. So that is what we mean by the term component of A along n. So the component of A along n, you can see over here, if the magnitude of A is given by the symbol capital A, so if mod A is equal to A and theta is the angle between vectors A and n cap, okay, then the component of A along n cap would be given by A cos theta. Okay. So that is how we would signify the component. Okay. So be given by the formula cos theta. So that is the essential meaning of the term component. So we can define the component of a given vector along any particular direction. Okay. including a direction which is perpendicular. For example, if I take a unit vector which is perpendicular to A, for example, if I were to take another unit vector now like this, where this angle is 90. So you can see that in this particular case, the component of A along the particular unit vector m cap that I have defined, that would be given by E cos 90 degrees, and that would be 0. So the component of a vector along any other unit vector can be 0. For that matter, it can even be a negative quantity if the angle between the given vector and the unit vector, instead of 90, if it is an obtuse angle, then it can be a negative quantity. But this is what we mean by the term component. And in terms of physical meaning, component basically means projection, which is something like a shadow cast by that object. Or thinking of the vector line, the geometrical representation as an object, it would be the projection cast by it along that unit vector. All right. So now another interesting concept that is related with the component of a vector. If we define any arbitrary vector in a two-dimensional plane, for that matter, okay? So let's look at components of a vector next in two-dimensional. Then we will come to three-dimensional system next. So it turns out that if the vector A, let's say, is lying in a certain plane, okay, and we define any two arbitrary unit vectors, let's say n cap and m cap. So n cap and n cap are two non-collinear unit vectors, okay, such that the vector A lies in the same plane as n and m cap. So again, what does the term non-collinear refer to over here? Non-collinear means they are neither parallel nor anti-parallel. That means they define a plane rather than they define a line, like what I've drawn over here. So it so turns out that the vector A as a whole now can be represented as what we call a linear combination of these two unit vectors. That means the vector A can be represented as the sum of two other vectors, which are such that one vector is along n cap and the other vector is along m cap. Okay, so it so turns out that the vector A can be represented as, okay, where lambda and mu are scalars. So this is kind of self-explanatory. Now the next question here would be, how would we express the quantity lambda and the quantity mu? Okay, so lambda and mu over here would be nothing but the components of the vector A along the direction n cap, or along the unit vector n cap and along the unit vector m cap. So basically we would calculate lambda and mu provided we knew the angle between the vector A and n cap, and we knew the angle between the vector A and m cap. So basically what we are saying here is that if you are to join, if you are to draw all three vectors, say A, n cap and m cap, we have drawn them, something like this. From a common origin, okay? And let us say that this particular angle here is alpha and this particular angle here is beta. So you could see that if you extend this line, the component of A which is along n cap would be this. Okay. So it would be, so this length here would be A cos alpha. And similarly, if you were to drop a perpendicular here, okay, you could see that this component would be E cos beta. Okay. Now you can see that we would be able to define the vector A itself as the sum of a vector along this and this. So that is how we are representing the vector A, as this linear superposition or the linear combination of two vectors, one along the vector unit vector n cap and one along the unit vector m cap. So that is the usefulness of defining the component of a vector along a unit vector, defining the component of the vector A along the unit vector n cap or m cap. Okay, so accordingly now what we can do next is define the vector itself, A itself, break it up into two vectors, one which is along n cap and one which is along m cap. So the magnitude of the vector which is along n cap will be called the component of A along n, and similarly for m. Okay. Now this whole concept becomes even more useful when instead of using arbitrary unit vectors n cap and n cap, we use the standard unit vectors for the rectangular coordinate system, that is I cap, j cap and k cap, as we discussed earlier. So since we are beginning our study here with vector component algebra of vectors in two-dimensional system, so what we will do next is we will limit ourselves to using only I cap and j cap, okay, because we'll restrict ourselves to the xy plane or the two-dimensional xy plane over here. So as we discussed earlier, I cap is the unit vector along x-axis, and j cap is the unit vector along y-axis. Okay. Now let us understand how to find out components of A along x and y axis, okay, or what we call AX, that is the component of A along x-axis, and AY similarly the component of A along the y-axis. Let's understand how to work that out. Okay, so let's say the vector A we are talking about is something like this, okay, and if we extend its line of action, it's making an angle theta with the x-axis. Okay, so keeping that in mind, once again working out a vector diagram, if this is the vector A, okay, you would see that with the direction of the x-axis, it's making an angle theta, and with the direction of the y-axis, it's making an angle 90 minus theta. And the magnitude of this vector is given by the symbol A. So when I drop a perpendicular onto the x-axis, you can see that the projection that you get over here, that is called AX, and AX is trigonometrically speaking nothing but A cos theta. Whereas when you drop a projection on the y-axis, you can see that the component of A along y-axis, AY, is nothing but A sin theta from the geometry of either of these two right angle triangles. Okay. So next what we can understand is that once we have found out AX and AY like this, we can represent the vector A itself as AX multiplied by I cap plus AY multiplied by j cap. Or now using these, we can see that the vector A can be represented as A cos theta I cap plus A sin theta. Okay, so this becomes a very simple way of expressing the components of the vector A along the x and y axis, that is AX and AY, provided we know the magnitude of the vector A and we know the angle that the vector A is making with the x-axis, which is theta in this case. Right? So keeping this in mind, let's first practice this out with a few examples. This process of working out the components of a vector along various different directions, that is what we call the operation of resolution. So when we say resolve a vector or find the resolution of a vector along in a particular system, what we mean by the term resolution or resolve is the operation of finding out the components of the vector along a particular direction. So let's understand examples of in a two-dimensional system. Let's see. So resolve the given vector into its components AX and AY. So that is the operation we are trying to work out here. So let's say we have a situation which is given like this, where the vector A is like this in the xy plane, and it is given to us that the magnitude of the vector E is, let us say, 25 units, and the angle theta is 37 degrees. So let's find out what the values of Ax and Ay are. So as you can see over here, when we want to work out this operation, the vector A now has a magnitude of 25 units. And this angle is 37 degrees. So dropping these perpendiculars onto the x and y axis, we can see is that this particular component, it will have a magnitude of 25 cos 37 degrees. Okay. So that is Ax, and this particular component, which is the same as this here, would have a magnitude of 25 sin 37 degrees. So as you can see, the x component is 25 cos 37, which would work out to be 25 multiplied by 4 by 5, so that is 20 units, and the y component would be 25 sin 37, which would work out to be 25 multiplied by 3 by 5, so that would be 15 units. Okay. So that gives us the components which we were looking for in the first place. And if you want to express the vector A in component form, okay, so next let's also see if you want to express vector A in component form. Okay, so let's say we want to do that also. So in component form, we would express the vector A as Ax I cap plus Ay j cap. So the component representation of the vector A would now be according to that 20 I cap plus 15 j cap. So this is the vector E expressed in component form. Whereas the entire operation that we are doing here to find out these components Ax and Ay, which are 20 and 15 respectively, is called the process of resolution. So we have resolved the vector A into its x and y components, A, that is A cos theta and A sin theta, and we have expressed it in component algebra. Right, so hope that particular example was clear. Okay. So because these particular components are perpendicular to each other, when we resolve in components which are mutually perpendicular, or which are along axes which are mutually perpendicular, we also say that they are the orthogonal components. So Ax and Ay over here, or Ax I cap and Ay j cap, are vectors which are perpendicular to each other, so they are called orthogonal components. So when we do that, when we resolve in a two-dimensional system where the axes we are considering are mutually perpendicular, we can say that we are resolving it into orthogonal components. Right, so that is about this. Okay. Now, before we continue with some more examples, what we will look at next is that how to do the reverse of this problem, that if Ax and Ay are known to us, if the components of a vector are known, then how to find the magnitude and direction of a given vector. So next let's understand that given the components Ax and Ay of a vector, okay, how would we express the magnitude of the vector, and how would we express the angle that it makes with the x-axis? So this is like a reverse of the problem we have discussed earlier, that given the vector A, how to find out its components. Now given its components, how to find out its magnitude and direction. Let's understand that. So suppose we are given a vector A, which is Ax I cap plus Ay j cap. Okay. So here Ax and Ay are given. Okay. So basically when we represent that in terms of a diagram, the vector A is such that it is the sum of two vectors, okay, one which is lying along the x-axis and having a magnitude of ax. So you can see that this thing as a vector is ax I cap, and the other is ay j cap, okay, which is perpendicular to the first one, and its direction is along the y-axis, its magnitude is ay. So how would we represent now the magnitude of the vector A and the angle theta? So as you can see, it's down to simple Pythagorean algebra again, or Pythagoras theorem in geometry. So magnitude of the vector A would become nothing but square root of ax square plus ay square, because these being orthogonal components, when you draw the vector triangle involving the orthogonal components in the vector itself, is nothing but a right angle triangle. So using the principle of Pythagoras theorem, we get that. And similarly, using trigonometry, you can see that theta is tan inverse of ay by x. That becomes the angle of theta. So that is the complete description of resolving a vector in 2 dimensions. Now next, let's pick up some more examples. So next example, we will be given 2 vectors, and we want to find the magnitude of each of the vectors, and we also want to find the unit vectors of those particular vectors, right? So given vectors A, which is minus 2i cap plus 3j cap, and B, which is 3i cap, find magnitude of A and magnitude of B, and we want to find the unit vector of A and the unit vector of B. Find these out, right? So let's look at the solution of this. Now the first thing is very simple. Given the vector A is minus 2i cap plus 3j cap, we can see that Ax is minus 2 and Ay is plus 3. Right? So the magnitude of the vector A is square root of Ax square plus Ay square. So that becomes square root of 2 square plus 3 square. So that becomes square root of 4 plus 9. So whatever unit Ax and Ay are expressed in, the magnitude of the vector A becomes that. Okay. Now one thing to keep in mind here is that when we talk about dimensionality, when we will look at applications of vectors with actual physical quantities, what we need to understand is that the unit vectors I cap and j cap are dimensionless. They are just unit vectors. So they do not have any particular unit or dimension. It is the component which has the dimension. So for example, if I am saying the vector A represents velocity over here, and velocity expressed in meters per second, then the component minus 2 is actually minus 2 meters per second, and the component 3 is 3 meters per second. So it is minus 2 meters per second, which is a scalar quantity, multiplied by the unit vector I cap, which makes it a vector, plus 3 meters per second is again a scalar quantity, multiplied by j cap, which makes it another vector. And then these two vectors, minus 2 I cap and plus 3 j cap, they become mutually perpendicular, so we can draw them in the xy plane, and their resultant is then the net velocity A vector, which has a magnitude of square root of 13 meters per second, and we will look at its direction next. Okay, but yeah, now let's come to the vector B's magnitude. So B is given by 3i cap, so that means the x component of B is 3, whereas the y component is 0. So B is basically lying along the x-axis. So the magnitude of B would then reduce to square root of bx square plus by square, so that is 3 square, so that is nothing but 3. So magnitude of the vector B is 3, magnitude of the vector A is root 13. Alright, so that's done. Now next let us look at the unit vector of the vector A would be defined as the vector A divided by its magnitude. That's how we have defined the unit vector earlier. So that would be nothing but the vector A divided by square root of ax square plus ay square. So that reduces now to this vector, which is minus 2i cap plus 3j cap divided by square root of 13. So we can also express it as 1 by root 13 into minus 2i cap plus 3. Does that make sense, right? Whereas if you look at the unit vector of B, is so real, it's just I cap. Because you can see B is along the x-axis. It would also be given by the proper operation, which is B divided by mod B, but that is not required over here. That is basically this. So that is an example of how to find the unit vectors. Next example. So in this xy plane, let's say we have a vector E, which is 30 units in magnitude, and this particular angle here is, let us say, 45 degrees. So we want to find AX and AY and express A in component form. So let us look at that particular problem now. As you can see that as far as the angle that vector A is making with the x-axis is concerned, this angle, theta is now 90 plus 45, or it is 135. So just going with trigonometry a little bit first, you can see that cos theta is cos of 135 degrees, which is cos of 90 plus 45. So using the formula of trigonometry in second quadrant, we can see cos of 90 plus theta is minus sin theta. So this becomes minus sin 45 degrees. That becomes minus 1 by root. So cos theta is minus 1 by root 2, and sin theta is sine of 135 degrees, which is sine of 90 plus 45. Now sine of 90 plus theta, as you know, becomes plus cos theta. So this is nothing but cos of 45 degrees. So that becomes 1 by 2. So that's sine theta, and this is cos theta. So basically that is what we need to find out, to express the vector A in component form. So once we have found out cos theta and sine theta, next thing we can see is that given mod A was 30, and we've got sine theta and cos theta, the vector A can be expressed as E cos theta I cap plus A sine theta j cap, where AX is A cos theta, so that is 30 into minus 1 by root, so that is minus 30 by root 2, or minus 15 root 2 units. So that becomes the value of AX, right? And AY similarly is A sine theta, so that becomes 30 multiplied by 1 by root 2, as we have expressed over there. Okay. So this becomes 15. So these are the values of AX and AY. And then expressing vector A in the component form, it is minus 15 root 2 I cap plus 15 root 2 j cap, or we can even express this as taking 15 root 2 common. See, it is minus I cap plus j cap. So this becomes the third form, right? So that is an example. So as long as we are clear about how to express the trigonometrical operations or trigonometric ratios, sine theta and cos theta, for various types of angles, theta being in first quadrant, second quadrant, etc., we should, expressing a vector in component algebra or vice versa should be pretty easy. Let's pick up some more examples. Let's look at an example where vector A is again given to us. So let us say it is what is given to us. So first of all, we want to find the magnitude of vector A. Then draw vector A in an xy plane, and from that find theta that is the angle with the x-axis. So that, alright. So you can see here the first part, magnitude of the vector E would be square root of Ex square plus Ey square. Now given that the vector E is 16 I cap minus 12 j cap, you can quite easily see here that Ex is 16 and Ey is minus 12. So the magnitude of E would be square root of 16 square plus 12 square. So that would be taken as 4 into square root of 4 square plus 3 square, because 16 is 4 into 4 and 12 is 4 into 3. So that becomes 4 into square root of 16 plus 9, which is 25. So that becomes 4 into 5 of 20. So magnitude of the vector E, you can see, is 20. Right? So, and taking that down. Next, let's see the vector E in the two-dimensional xy plane. To understand next over here is when we're talking about drawing the vector E, which is 16 I cap minus 12 j cap in the xy plane, we are basically expressing the vector E as the sum of two vectors, right? One vector being 16 I cap and the other vector being minus 12 j cap. So 16 I cap would over here be a vector like this, 16 units and lying along the positive x-axis. So that would be my 16 I cap as a vector. Whereas minus 12 j cap would be a vector that is lying along the negative y-axis, because j cap points upwards, and it would be of 12 units. So it would be a vector like this of 12 units along the negative y-axis. So that's why minus 12 j cap. Now simply speaking, the vector A is nothing but the vector sum of these two components, or these two projections. So this is how my vector E would look like. Okay. And that would be of magnitude 20, as we discussed just now, right? And now the final thing is we want to find out the angle theta. So technically speaking, theta would be this angle, okay? Or we could also express it as this whole angle. So theta is basically in the fourth quadrant, okay? And that is why we can see that basically sin theta is minus 12 by 20 and cos theta is 16 by 20. So cos theta is positive and sin theta is negative, which again shows us that it's in the fourth quadrant, apart from the fact that in the diagram itself we can see it. So theta is tan inverse of Ey by x. So that is tan inverse of minus 12 by 16. Okay. And in the fourth quadrant. So keeping that in mind, theta is equal to tan inverse of minus 3 by 4. Okay. So because it is in the fourth quadrant, we can say that theta is minus of tan inverse 3 by 4. Okay. Or we can say that theta is 360 degrees minus tan inverse. So that basically shows us that theta can be expressed as either minus of 37 degrees or 360 minus 37, 323 degrees. So if we are expressing theta as the anti-clockwise angle with a positive sign, it is 323 degrees. Whereas if we are expressing theta as the clockwise angle, it will come with a negative sign and its value is minus 37 degrees. Right? So hope that with these examples, things are apparent how to resolve vectors, or alternately if the vector is given in resolved form or in component form, how to express the magnitude and direction of the vectors. Right. Fine. So let us now take component algebra to the next level. That is, let's start understanding vector operations like addition, subtraction, etc. Using component algebra. So what we mean by component algebra is algebraic operations using the component notation of vectors. So, for example, addition. So this is an addition to begin with. So given that a vector E is Ex I cap plus Ey j cap, and a vector B is Bx I cap plus By j cap. Now the vector E plus B, okay, how would we work that out? So we have to just sum up these two. So express E in component form. So express it this way. Okay. Now what we can do is, because these two vectors are collinear, they are both along the I cap, we can write them as Ax plus Bx along I cap. And similarly, these two are collinear and they are basically orthogonal with the first two, so we can express them as Ay plus By j cap. Right. So that is what the vector E plus B becomes. So in other words, when we add up vectors, the x component of the sum becomes the sum of the x components. The y component of the sum becomes the sum of the y components. So in other words, if we are adding up n number of vectors, suppose we have, okay, so the summation of vectors A from I equal to 1 to n, let's say we have n such vectors, A1 plus A2 plus A3, etc. That would be nothing but the summation of Ax, okay, whole thing multiplied by I cap, plus the summation of Ay's, whole thing from 1 to n along. In this particular case, we are adding two vectors, A and B, but if we added n number of vectors, it would reduce to the same. Okay. Geometrically also we can understand what we are doing here, because for example, if the vector A is this, okay, and the vector B is this, okay, then when we are adding up A and B, remember what we are getting is this A plus B. Now if we were to look at this in context of the standard xy coordinate system, so let's say this is our x-axis, let's say this is our mutually perpendicular y-axis. Okay. Now we can see here that this is the same as this. Okay. So when we drop a perpendicular here, this much is Ax, and when we drop a perpendicular here, similarly, this much is Bx, okay, this much is Ay, okay, and this much is By. Okay. So now concentrating on the vector A plus B, this one in the middle, this vector, we can see that its x component is nothing but this whole thing, which is Ax plus Bx. And again, concentrating on this whole thing, we can see that its y coordinate is nothing but this whole thing, which is Ey plus B. So geometrically, that's how we can understand why the sum of the components becomes each component of the sum. Right. Now, if it comes to subtraction of two vectors, we just find out A minus B, for example. It could be expressed as A plus of the opposite of vector B, minus B. So we can express this as Ax I cap plus Ay j cap plus with minus of this so that being the case, see that this is now so this becomes the working formula. Right. More examples next. Example. We'll which of the following are unit vectors? So let's looking at that. So let's say the first example given to us is I cap plus 2j cap. Second example given to us is 1 by root 2 I cap minus 1 by root 2 j cap. Third example given to us is 0.6 I cap minus 0.8 j cap. Fourth example given to us is, let's say, root 3 by 2 I cap plus 1 by 2 j cap. And the last example given to us is so how would we pick out which of these 5 unit vectors is which of these 5 vectors is or are a unit vector? So as you know, by definition, a unit vector is one whose magnitude is 1. So we just need to check which of these vectors has a magnitude of 1 and which doesn't. So the ones which have a magnitude of 1 can be termed as unit vectors. So in solution, let's see. E cap is, magnitude of A. We want to find out which ones have magnitude equal to 1. So magnitude of the vector A is square root of ax square plus ay square. Okay. So that over here would be square root of 1 square plus 2 square. So that is root 5. So we can see this is not a unit vector. It's not unit. So A is definitely not a unit vector, right? Similarly, let's look at the vector B. Its magnitude would be this much. It should be that you can see is 1. So it is unity. So B is a unit vector. Similarly, let's look at magnitude of the vector C. Right? So that is square root of 0.36 plus 0.64, which is 1. So as you can see, C is also a unit vector. Okay. Similarly, let's pick up the next one. With this, right? That again works out to be 1. Right? So D is also a unit vector. And finally, the last one. So that's not 1. So this is not a unit vector. Right? So that becomes the vector A given to us is 2 I cap plus 6 j cap, and the vector B given to us is I cap minus j cap. Okay. Let's say C is defined as A minus B and D is defined as 2A plus 6B. So what we want to do next is find C and C cap and find vector D and its unit vector. So this is the next example we're looking at. So it is 2 I cap plus 6 j cap minus of I cap minus j cap. So as you can see, the x component will become 2 minus 1 and the y component will become 6 minus of minus 1. So this becomes I cap plus 7j. That is the vector C itself, right? And the unit vector of C is the vector C divided by its magnitude. So that is I cap plus 7j cap divided by mod of I cap, or magnitude of I cap, plus 7j cap. So that would be I cap plus 7j cap divided by square root of 1 square plus 7 square. So as you can see, it becomes I cap plus 7j cap divided by square root of 50, or I cap plus 7j cap divided by 5 root 2. So that becomes the unit vector of C. Alright, so just analyze this once. Okay, next up, let's look at second part, how to find the vector D. So the vector D is defined as 2a cap plus 6b cap. So that would be 2 times the vector A, which is expressed as 2i cap plus 6j cap, plus 6 times the vector B, which is expressed as I cap minus j cap. So now this would be solved as 2 times 2, or 4i cap, plus 6 times 2, or 12j cap, plus again 6 times I cap, so that's 6i cap, in plus 6 times minus j cap, so that would be minus 6j cap. And further expanding this, you can see that when you open these brackets, 4 and 6 are both along I cap, so that becomes 10 I cap, and 12 and minus 6 are along j cap, so that becomes 6 j cap. So that is the vector D itself. And once again, the unit vector of D is, which is 10 I cap plus 6j cap divided by magnitude of 10i plus 6j. Right. So that would reduce to 136. So we could simplify this a little further. 10i cap plus 6j cap divided by 2 times 4. So that is about the simple application of algebraic operations, addition and subtraction, in 2-dimensional component algebra. Now next, let us move on to 3-dimensional component algebra. Let's understand how to resolve the components of the vector in 3 dimensions. As you can see, this is the rectangular or Cartesian 3-dimensional coordinate system. So x, y and z axes are mutually perpendicular. Right, so keeping that in mind, now suppose we have a vector A. Then A can be expressed as AXI cap plus AY j cap plus AZ k cap, where AX, AY and AZ are the X component, Y component and the Z component of A respectively. The idea is, once again, if we know the vector A's magnitude and we know the angles it makes with the x, y and z axis, the vector A, whatever angles it makes with the x, y and z, then we can find AX, AY and AZ. So the first thing is that given the magnitude of vector E and something called direction cosines, okay, cos alpha, cos beta and cos gamma. So these are called the direction cosines, where alpha is the angle of the vector A with the x-axis. Similarly, beta is the angle with the y-axis, and gamma is the angle with the z-axis. So one has to understand the three-dimensionality of it here. For example, trying to express it in better three-dimensional manner, the xy axes are lying in the plane of the board, but the z-axis is mutually perpendicular and pointing out. So this black pen would represent the z-axis, okay? And the vector A over here, though it looks in the diagram like it's in the two-dimensional xy plane, it's not. We are basically expressing it as a vector which is neither in the xy plane nor in the yz plane nor in the zx plane. It is basically lying in an arbitrary direction like this, okay? So given that, it would be making an angle alpha with the x-axis, an angle beta with the y-axis, and an angle gamma with the z-axis. So again, understand the three-dimensionality. This is the vector A, right? So if we drop a perpendicular from the vector A onto the x-axis, we'll get a triangle, right? A right angle triangle. And the angle that the vector A itself is making with the x-axis in that triangle, that is expressed as alpha. Similarly, drop a perpendicular onto the y-axis, you would get the angle beta, and onto the z-axis, and we get the angle gamma. So once we have expressed the angles alpha, beta, and gamma, the quantities cos alpha, cos beta, and cos gamma are called the direction cosines. Okay? And as it turns out, next we can calculate the values of AX, AY, and AZ using the direction cosines. So given the magnitude of the vector A and given the direction cosines cos alpha, cos beta, and cos gamma, the value of AX, AY, and AZ would be very simple. AX would just be A cos alpha, AY would just be A cos beta, and AZ would just be A cos gamma. But once again, we understand that the components are nothing but projections. So if you visualize this properly in the three-dimensional picture, what you'll understand is that dropping a perpendicular from A onto the x-axis, we get a triangle. We get a right angle triangle in an arbitrary plane. That plane is not the xy plane. It is not the xz plane. It is not the yz plane. It's an arbitrary plane. So in that plane, when we look at the projection of vector A on the x-axis, it's nothing but the base of that triangle. The triangle where magnitude of A is the hypotenuse, alpha is the angle, and you're dropping a perpendicular onto the x-axis. So the base of that triangle is nothing but projection of A along the x-axis, and that is what we denote as AX. So trigonometrically speaking, AX becomes A cos alpha, right? So given vectors magnitude and the direction cosines, we can see that this is how we express the x component, right? This is how we express the y component, and this is how we express the z component. So this is resolving the vector A into its components, given that we know its magnitude and its direction cosines, right? Now the inverse of this statement would be that magnitude of the vector A would be square root of AX square plus AY square plus AZ square. Okay. Now that again is pretty easy to understand, because if you look at the vector A, it's the sum of, let's say, this vector and this. Right? Now again, if you notice, this particular vector here is perpendicular to this vector. Right? It's perpendicular because this is lying in the xy plane and this is lying in the along the z-axis. Right? So if you express it as the sum of these two vectors, the one in the bracket and this one, then the magnitude of the sum should be square root of this one's magnitude square plus this one's magnitude square. So basically we can say that from here mod A would be square root of ax I cap plus ay j caps magnitude square plus az k caps magnitude square. Now obviously already in the previous section we have understood that this quantity's magnitude is root of ax square plus ay square. So its magnitude square becomes ax square plus ay square, and this quantity's magnitude is ez. So there we are. So it expresses that the magnitude of the vector A would be square root of the sum of the squares of the three orthogonal components ax, ay, and az. Right. So that is component algebra in 3 dimensions. Okay. Now a couple of more things we'll understand in terms of applications. Position vector of a point in 3-dimensional system. So we want to understand how to express the position of a point in a 3-dimensional region using vector algebra. Right. So if the point has an x coordinate of xp, a y coordinate of yp, and a z coordinate of z, then first of all, what we mean by the position vector is the vector joining the origin of our coordinate system with the point. Okay. So position vector of P, which we can express as Rp, is nothing but the vector OP, that is the vector joining origin to the point P. Now we can quite easily understand that the vector Rp in terms of the coordinates of the point would be nothing but xp I cap plus yp j cap plus zp, and its magnitude therefore would be given by square root of right. So this becomes a very important definition and an application which particularly speaking we will be using in the chapter on motion, which is called kinematics. So in kinematics we will be using vectors to define the equations which will help us express the motion of particles, etc. So the most fundamental thing before we start expressing the motion of a particle is the expressing of its position using vector algebra, and hence we see the definition here. The position vector of a particle is given by that. So you just visualize it as the vector that locates the particle P starting from the origin. So if the particle P is, let's say, located here, so it has a certain x coordinate, it has a certain y coordinate, it has a certain z coordinate, because the z axis is again lying here. So the particle P is lying somewhere here, so it has a corresponding x, y and z coordinate. Now how would we locate the point P starting from the origin? That is what the position vector Rp is telling us. We would go x units along the x axis, follow it with y units along the y axis, and then z units along the z axis, and we would arrive at the location which is given by xp, yp and z. Right? So that is the logic of this particular part. Okay. So coming to more examples using this, okay, 3-dimensional algebra and stuff. Okay. Let's work out some questions. let's consider this. So firstly, want to find magnitude of A and magnitude of B. Secondly, you want to find the vector E plus B and magnitude of A plus B. And third, you want to find the vector E minus B and magnitude of A minus B. So, very simple type of application here. So as you can see, the first part, the magnitude of the vector A would be square root of ax square plus ay square plus az square. So here that is square root of 3 square plus 4 square plus 12 square. That would be square root of 9 plus 25 plus 144. 9 plus 16 plus 144. So that would give us 9 plus 16, 25, right? Plus 144, that's 169. So that would give us 13. So magnitude of A works out to be 13 units. Similarly, the magnitude of the vector B is square root of bx square plus by square plus bz square. Now as you can see here, B has a z component of 0. So it's just 3 square plus 4 square. That is square root of 25. So magnitude of B is 5. Right, so that is just a repetition of the concepts we have seen in previous section. Okay. Now coming to the sum and difference. A plus B would be ax plus bx, ay plus by, az plus bz. Right, so ax plus bx you can see is 6, ay plus by would be 0, okay, and az plus bz would be 12. Right. So that is the vector A plus B itself, and magnitude of A plus B will be mod of 6i cap plus 12j cap. So write that as 6 root 5 will be the mod of A plus B. Right, so that would be this. So as you can see, ax minus bx would give us 0. Okay. Ay minus by would give us 4 minus of minus 4, that's 8 j cap, and az minus bz would give us 12 minus 0, so that's 12. So that is the vector A minus B. So the magnitude of the vector right. So the common factor being 4. See that this is 2 square plus 3 square, 4 into root 4 plus 9. Right. So that would be magnitude of A minus B. So that's another example. Alright, next up, let's pick up something from component algebra and position vectors.